Ambassador Lee walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber, for what he did not know would be the last time. The huge room stretched out before him like a metal cavern filled with the strangest creatures he had ever seen or had 6 arms. Others had wings that sparkled like diamonds, and a few looked like floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles. The human section sat near the back corner where all the small species were placed. Lee took his seat next to Ambassador Shin, who was reading reports on her tablet. Her face looked tired and frustrated, just like his own. They had been doing this job for 3 long years, and nothing had changed. The council speaker floated to the center of the room. Its body looked like a giant jellyfish made of blue light, and when it spoke, the words came out in perfect galactic standard language. "Today, we discuss shipping route efficiency in Sector 7, the speaker announced. Lee felt his heart sink. This was the same boring topic they had talked about for 6 months while human colonies were dying. People on the outer worlds needed food, medicine, and protection, but all the council cared about was making money from trade routes. The Vorthan delegate stood up on his 6 legs and waved all his arms at once. "Our profits have dropped by 2% because of these delays," he complained in his squeaky voice. "We demand the council fix this problem immediately." A Nexari delegate made musical sounds that meant she agreed. Her crystal body rang like bells when she moved. The music sounded pretty, but Lee knew she was only talking about money too. None of these aliens cared about anything except their bank accounts. Lee looked at the message on his tablet that had arrived. That morning, pirates had attacked the farming colony on Kepler, 442. 3,000 people were dead, including many children. The message had pictures that made his stomach hurt. Burned homes, empty playgrounds, and graves dug in neat rows he had brought this emergency to the council 6 hours ago. The response was typical. "We will form a committee to study this situation," the speaker had said. "The committee will report back in 6 months. Meanwhile, people were still dying, and more pirates were attacking other colonies. Shin leaned over and whispered to him. The Arcturus colony just sent another distress call. Their water recycling system is broken, and they have maybe 2 weeks before people start dying of thirst. Lee felt anger building in his chest, like fire. His daughter Park lived on a frontier world called New Busan. She was a teacher at the colony school, and every day she sent him messages about problems they faced: broken equipment, food shortages, and fear of pirate attacks. The council promised help, but help never came fast enough. The Thrakari war minister stood up and spoke in his deep voice that sounded like rocks falling. "The human request for military support is premature," he said. "We must follow proper procedures. First we study the threat level, then we evaluate response options, then we vote on budget allocation. This process takes time. Lee thought bitterly. Time was something dying colonists did not have. Ambassador Kang from the Meridian delegation raised her small hand to speak. Her species was even smaller than humans in council politics. "We support the human request for emergency aid," she said in her quiet voice. "Our own colonies face similar problems." The speaker made a dismissive sound. "The proper procedure must be followed. Order must be maintained. We cannot act without proper study and debate." Lee watched as other delegates nodded in agreement. They sat in comfortable chairs in this safe building on the council homeworld, while real people suffered and died in the darkness of space. Most of these aliens had never set foot on a colony world. They had never seen children go hungry or watched families flee from pirates. The Nexari delegate made more bell sounds about trade profits. The Vorthan complained about shipping delays again. A few other species talked about tax rates and regulation changes. Nobody mentioned the dead humans on Kepler, 442. Nobody cared about the water crisis on Arcturus. Lee thought about his first day as ambassador. 3 years ago, he had been so hopeful. Then Earth had just joined the galactic community, and he believed the council would help humanity grow and prosper. The reality was different. The council was a club for rich, powerful species who looked down on newcomers like humans. Shin showed him another message on her tablet. This one was from the colony administrator on New Sol. The defensive shields around their main city had failed, and they were asking for replacement parts the council had promised, those parts 8 months ago. But they were still stuck in some bureaucratic review process. The discussion continued with aliens arguing about profit margins and shipping schedules. Lee felt like screaming. How could they sit here talking about money while people died? The worst part was that this was normal. This was how the council always worked. Slow, careful, and completely useless when it came to real emergencies. A memory came to him of his daughter Park sending a video message last week. She was teaching human children and some young aliens in her classroom. All of them looked thin because food shipments were late again. Park smiled in the video, but Lee could see the worry in her eyes. She was trying to stay brave for the children. Council Speaker called for a vote on forming yet another study committee to look into colonial security issues. Lee knew exactly how this would go. The committee would meet once a month for 6 months, then write a report recommending more study. The pirates would keep attacking and more people would die while the bureaucrats talked. Something inside Lee broke. He had spent 3 years playing by their rules. 3 years of polite requests and proper procedures. 3 years of watching his people suffer while aliens debated and delayed. Everything he had been taught about diplomacy suddenly seemed like a waste of time. The vote proceeded as expected. 73 species voted to form the study committee. 12 voted against it, including humans and a few minor species. The committee would begin work next month and report back eventually. Lee stood up slowly. His chair made a small scraping sound that seemed loud in the quiet chamber. Several alien heads turned to look at him. Ambassador, Lee, please remain seated during voting procedures, the speaker said in an annoyed tone. Instead of sitting down, Lee began walking toward the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed off the high ceiling. Shin called his name quietly, but he did not stop. Other delegates stared at him with confusion. Some had never seen a human act this way before. Ambassador Lee, return to your designated area immediately, the speaker commanded. Its blue glow seemed brighter. Now, Lee reached the center of the chamber where only the speaker was supposed to be. He looked around at all the alien faces. Some showed boredom, others mild curiosity. None showed the urgency that dying humans deserved. He thought of Park teaching hungry children. He thought of the graves on Kepler 442. He thought of 3 years of wasted time. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. The human delegation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We reject your authority over human affairs and territories. We will handle our own problems in our own way, starting now. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates screeched, chirped, roared, and made sounds Lee had never heard before. The speaker's blue glow flickered with what might have been panic or anger. Emergency protocols activate immediately. It announced. Lee turned and walked back toward the human section. Shin stood up and joined him without a word. Together they walked toward the exit while behind them the council. Speaker desperately called for order, but Lee did not look back. Humanity had just declared independence from a galaxy that did not care about them. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Council Speaker Zeth floated alone in his private chambers, 3 hours after the humans had walked out. His tentacles twisted and curled with worry, something that had never happened in his 50 years of galactic politics. No species had ever simply left the council before there were laws, procedures, and frameworks that prevented such actions, or so he had always believed. The emergency session had been chaos, pure, absolute chaos. Delegates screaming in dozens of languages, security guards running everywhere, and news reporters pushing through crowds to get the story. Zeth had tried to maintain order. But how do you control panic when something impossible has just happened? Trade Minister Kova paced back and forth on her 4 scaly legs. Her reptilian eyes showed confusion and anger. This cannot be real, she said for the 10th time. Humans depend on our supply chains, our protection fleets, our technology sharing agreements. They will come crawling back within days, begging us to take them back, but the reports flooding in told a completely different story. Human trade convoys had changed course away from council-controlled space. Human colonies were activating defense systems that nobody knew they had. Most shocking of all, human diplomatic posts across the galaxy were closing down with staff evacuating faster than anyone thought possible. Defense Minister Rax clicked his mandibles nervously. The giant insect warrior was used to threats he could fight, but political situations confused him. How did they organize this so quickly? He asked. It is like they planned this withdrawal for months. The truth was even more disturbing than Rax imagined. On Earth, President Kim was addressing a packed assembly hall filled with government officials, military leaders, and colony representatives. The speech was being broadcast live to every human settlement in the galaxy. My fellow humans, Kim said in a voice that carried strength and determination. For too long we have waited for permission to protect our own people. We have followed their rules, played their games, and watched our families suffer while aliens debate and delay. No more. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Kim waited for quiet before continuing. Operation Homecoming begins. Immediately, every human settlement will receive direct aid and protection from Earth. We are bringing our people home not to our planet, but to our protection. In the orbital shipyards around Earth, the largest fleet mobilization in human history was already underway. Admiral Cho commanded 700 ships of various classes, from massive cargo haulers to sleek destroyer escorts. Engineering crews worked without rest, loading medical supplies, food, construction equipment, and defensive weapons. Speed amazed even the human crews themselves. Cho had planned for this day, secretly hoping it would never come, but preparing anyway. Military planners had studied council logistics for years, noting every delay, every bureaucratic slowdown, every moment when human lives were lost to alien politics. Captain Nam supervised the loading of hospital ship Seoul, with enough medical equipment to treat 50,000 patients. The ship would head straight for the outer colonies where medical care was desperately needed. No forms to fill out, no permits required, no committees to convince. Meanwhile, Transport Captain Yu prepared cargo ship Busan with enough food to feed a dozen colony worlds for 6 months. The council had always made human settlements wait weeks for supply approvals. Now those same supplies would arrive in days. The news networks across the galaxy struggled to understand what was happening. Human actions made no sense to alien political analysts. Why would any species abandon the safety and structure of the council system? Why risk independence when membership provided security? Nexari News played footage of human ships leaving council ports while their reporter made confused musical sounds. The humans appear to be rejecting profitable trade relationships in favor of uncertain independent ventures. This behavior does not match any known political model. Vorthan. Broadcasting showed empty human embassy buildings with all 6 of their arms waving in distress. Human diplomatic staff have evacuated 17 embassy compounds in the past 4 hours, leaving behind formal notices of withdrawal. This level of coordination suggests extensive prior planning. But the most significant reaction came from smaller species who had watched the human exodus with growing interest. The Meridian Alliance, representing 47 minor races, held an emergency meeting within hours of the human announcement. Delegate Kang addressed her fellow representatives in the small conference room they had been given far from the main council chambers. We have seen what humans accomplished in just 3 years of membership, she said. They built thriving colonies, established trade networks, and protected their people despite council delays. Elder Tam nodded his gray head thoughtfully. The humans never accepted second-class treatment. They demanded equality, and when denied, they chose independence. Perhaps we should consider similar actions. The idea spread quickly through minor species networks. Species that had been ignored, dismissed, or marginalized by the major council powers began asking dangerous questions. Why did they need council approval to defend their own people? Why should they wait months for aid that humans could provide in days? On the planet Xerion, a small mining world populated by the insectoid Cleth species watched human ships approaching their system. The Cleth had requested medical aid from the council 8 months ago when a plague struck. Their colonies, the council had promised help eventually, but forms needed to be processed and health regulations reviewed. The human medical ship arrived without fanfare. Dr. Bayek and her team set up treatment centers in the main cities within hours. They brought medicine that worked, equipment that functioned, and most importantly, they brought urgency that the Council had never shown. Worker Cleth Zix, recovered from the plague thanks to human medicine, looked up at Dr. Bayek with compound eyes full of gratitude. "Why do you help us?" he asked in broken Galactic standard. "We are not your species, Doctor." Bayek smiled as she prepared medicine for the next patient. "Because people are dying and we can help," she said simply. "That is reason enough." Word of human aid spread through the Cleth communication networks. Within days, similar requests came from other minor species worlds. Human ships responded to each call while Council bureaucrats were still processing the original paperwork. The economic impact hit the Council faster than anyone expected. Human-controlled trade routes carried 40% of galactic commerce. Human-managed logistics hubs processed 60% of interspecies shipping. When human operators shut down these systems, overnight shipping costs across the galaxy doubled. Emergency council meetings convened every few hours, but no solutions emerged. How do you force an independent species to rejoin an organization they have rejected? Military action was impossible. Without human logistics support, economic sanctions would hurt the Council more than humanity. President Kim received a constant stream of messages from human colonies reporting the arrival of aid ships. Kepler 442 survivors were being evacuated to safety. New Sol had received defensive equipment. Arcturus got working water recyclers within 36 hours of the human withdrawal. But perhaps the most important message came from Park, his daughter. "On New Busan, Dad," she said in her video message. "Human ships arrived this morning with food, medicine, and teachers to help our school. The children are so happy they are crying. Some of them have never seen this much food before." Kim felt tears in his own eyes as he watched his daughter distribute supplies to alien and human children alike. This was why they had left the Council. Not for pride or politics, but for moments like this, when help arrived in time to matter. The Galactic Council would spend weeks trying to understand what had happened, but the truth was simple. Humans had chosen action over procedure, results over rules, and their own people over political games. The galaxy would never be the same. Captain Yoon stood on the bridge of the destroyer Incheon, watching the burned remains of Kepler 442 grow larger on the main screen. 18 hours had passed since his task force left Earth orbit, and they had already reached the massacre site. The speed shocked everyone, including his own crew. The Council would have spent months debating jurisdiction and proper procedures, Yoon thought as he studied the damage reports. Pirates had destroyed the farming colony completely, leaving nothing but smoking ruins and mass graves. His orders were simple: rescue survivors and hunt down the attackers. Lieutenant Han at the sensor station called out, "Captain, I am detecting life signs in the underground shelters. Approximately 200 survivors, mostly women and children. Deploy rescue teams immediately." Yoon ordered medical teams, construction crews, and security forces prepare for immediate planetfall. No waiting for environmental clearance. No forms to fill out, just action within minutes. Human shuttles were racing toward the planet's surface. Dr. Bayek led the medical team into the underground shelters where families had been hiding for 3 days without food or clean water. The children cried when they saw the humans coming. Not from fear, but from relief. "We thought everyone had forgotten about us," whispered Colony Administrator Lee as Dr. Bayek treated his injured arm. The Council said help would come eventually, but eventually felt like never. Dr. Bayek smiled as she bandaged the wound. "Help is here now," she said simply. "That is what matters." Above-ground engineers so directed construction teams in rebuilding the colony power grid, working without permits or safety inspections that would take months to approve. The humans had electricity restored in 6 hours. The Council would have needed 6 weeks just to send an inspection team. The news spread through human settlements across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications. Help was coming, and it was coming. Immediately, Colony Administrator Han on New Sol reported supply convoys arriving within days instead of the months promised by Council logistics. The colonists cheered as human ships unloaded food, medicine, and defensive weapons. Children who had been hungry for weeks suddenly had full bellies. Adults who had lived in fear of pirates now had protection systems that actually worked. But the most surprising development came from non-human colonies. Desperate settlements of minor species ignored by the Council for decades began sending secret messages to human ships. They wanted help too, and they were willing to trade with humanity directly. The Calthian mining world of Zerion 7 sent a coded transmission to Captain Kim commanding the cargo ship Mokpo. "Our water purification systems have failed," they messaged. "Can you help us?" "We can pay with refined minerals." Captain Kim changed course, immediately arriving at Zerion 7 within 2 days. Engineer. So and his team worked around the clock repairing filtration equipment that had been broken for months. The grateful Calthians offered rare metals worth millions of credits, creating humanity's first independent trade partnership. Similar deals emerged across the galaxy. Human engineers fixed problems that council bureaucrats had ignored for years. Human doctors treated patients that council health services had deemed non-priority. Human security teams protected colonies that council defense forces had written off as too expensive. To defend, Admiral Park led a patrol fleet through the Rigel corridor when his sensors detected a distress call. Mixed species freight convoy under attack by pirates. The communication officer reported. Estimated 12 ships in the convoy, 6 pirate vessels attacking. The old days, Park would have needed to request permission from Council Command, file a military intervention report, and wait for approval while people died. Today, he simply gave orders. All ships attack formation, engage, and destroy pirate vessels immediately. The human fleet moved with deadly precision. Destroyer Daegu eliminated 2 pirate ships with missile strikes. Cruiser Gwangju disabled the pirate flagship with laser fire. Frigate Ulsan rescued escape pods from damaged freighters. The entire battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The rescued convoy included Vorthan Nixari and Thrikari merchants who had been terrified of the human approach. Galactic news portrayed humans as dangerous rebels who had abandoned civilized behavior. Instead, they found efficient professional defenders who asked for nothing in return. Merchant Captain Vex of the Vorthan Commercial Guild transmitted his gratitude to Admiral Park. "Your people saved our lives and our cargo," he said in his squeaky voice. "The Council told us humans were becoming dangerous, but you are more honorable than any Council patrol we have encountered." The story spread through merchant networks across the galaxy. Human patrols were faster, more effective, and more reliable than Council defense forces. They responded to emergencies immediately, instead of filing reports and requesting authorization. Pirates learned to avoid human-protected shipping lanes, while traders began requesting human escorts. Engineer, Nam worked on the Arcturus colony water recycling system that had been broken for 8 months. The Council had promised replacement parts repeatedly, but the parts remained stuck in bureaucratic review processes. Nam brought spare parts from Earth and had the system working in 12 hours. Colony children who had been drinking rationed water for months suddenly had clean, unlimited water for drinking, bathing, and playing. The joy on their faces made Nam understand why humanity had left the Frison Council. Some things were more important than following proper procedures. Dr. Park treated patients at a medical station on the border world of New Daegu. The previous Council medical team had visited 6 months earlier, spent 3 days filing health reports, and left without treating anyone. Dr. Park and her team had treated 300 patients in their first week. The speed of human response amazed everyone. While alien governments debated and formed committees, humans identified problems and solved them immediately. Their military moved with purpose, their aid workers showed genuine compassion, and their engineers fixed things that had been broken for years. Captain Seo commanded the defense platform guarding New Inchin. When Thrikari pirates attacked the agricultural colony, the pirates expected an easy target like other human settlements they had raided. Instead, they found modern defensive systems and rapid response protocols. The battle lasted 30 minutes. Human fighters launched from the platform engaged pirate ships while orbital defense lasers provided supporting fire. The pirates retreated after losing half their fleet, broadcasting warnings to other criminal groups that human colonies were no longer easy targets. President Kim received daily reports of successful operations from across human space. Kepler 442 survivors were recovering in temporary housing. New Sol had defensive shields that actually worked. Arcturus had clean water flowing. Again, New Busan reported that Teacher Park was expanding her school to accommodate alien students. But the most important report came from Intelligence Director Yoon. Human actions are inspiring other species to question Council authority. He reported, the Meridian Alliance is considering withdrawal from Council membership. Several minor species have requested direct trade relationships with us. The transformation amazed galactic historians. Humanity exit from diplomacy had not created chaos but revealed the chaos that already existed under Council bureaucracy. By refusing to accept a broken system, humans had forced the galaxy to find better ways of cooperation, trade networks reorganized around human efficiency, defense alliances formed around human reliability. Aid distribution followed human models of immediate response. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that change through action, rather than words. Colony Administrator Jin on New Gwangju sent a message that summarized the new reality. For the first time since joining the galactic community, we feel truly safe, he reported. Human protection is real. Human aid is immediate, and human promises are kept. This is what civilization should look like. Council Speaker Zeth floated in the emergency session chamber 3 months after the human exodus and everything was falling apart. Trade networks had collapsed as key routes depended on human-controlled systems. Minor species openly questioned. Council authority and several member races were considering following humanity example. The chamber that once held over 200 delegates now barely had half that number. Empty seats marked where species had withdrawn, reduced their participation, or simply stopped attending meetings. The Meridian Alliance had formally suspended their membership last week, and 12 other minor species were threatening to do the same. Defense Minister Rax pounded the conference table with his chitinous fists, making a sound like hammers hitting metal. We must use force, he declared in his deep voice. Blockade their systems, cut off their supply lines, show them the cost of defying Council authority. Trade Minister Kova shook her scaled head violently. Our own logistics depend on human infrastructure, she said with frustration. They control 17 major trade hubs and 36 crucial hyperspace routes. A blockade would hurt us more than them. The reality was worse than Kova admitted. Shipping costs across the galaxy had increased by 60% since humans stopped managing logistics networks. Colonies that relied on efficient human systems faced supply shortages while merchants paid double for slower council-controlled routes. Economic Advisor Tam displayed holographic charts showing the disaster galactic trade volume has dropped by 40%. He reported several major corporations are negotiating directly with humans, bypassing council regulations entirely. The Nexari Commercial Federation is secretly maintaining trade relationships despite our sanctions. The council's first attempt at pressure involved economic warfare. President Yex announced the freezing of all human assets in council banks and banned all trade between council species and human vessels. The announcement was broadcast across the galaxy with great ceremony. The response from Earth came within hours. President Kim appeared on every major news network addressing the galaxy directly. All council species are hereby banned from human-controlled trade routes and facilities, he announced calmly. Human-protected space is closed to council military and commercial vessels effective immediately. Within days, the economic impact became catastrophic. Shipping costs increased by another 20% as traders were forced to use longer, slower routes. Colonies that depended on human logistics networks faced critical shortages. Food, medicine, and industrial supplies sat in warehouses because no one could transport them efficiently. The Nexari delegation, which had supported the sanctions, quietly approached human representatives through back channels. Trade Minister Lila transmitted a coded message to Earth. We must maintain our crystal exports to human space, she pleaded. Our economy will collapse without access to your markets. President Kim's response was broadcast publicly for everyone to hear. The council chose economic warfare and they will live with the consequences. Human space remains closed to all council entities until they formally recognize our independence. But the most humiliating blow came when the Vorthan Commercial Guild openly defied council sanctions. Merchant Captain Vex announced that his trade fleet would continue doing business with humans regardless of council orders. We will not sacrifice our profits for political games, he declared with all 6 arms waving. The Council's second attempt at control involved military intimidation. Admiral Voss assembled the largest battle fleet in Council history. 300 ships from 12 different species positioned themselves at the edge of human space, making threatening maneuvers and broadcasting demands for human surrender. The human response shocked everyone. Admiral Cho appeared with 5 times as many ships surrounding the Council fleet in a display of naval power that nobody had expected. Human destroyers, frigates, and cruisers materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, creating a steel wall. Around the intruders, Admiral Voss found himself trapped in the center of a human formation, with weapons pointed at his fleet from every direction. His communication officer received a transmission on all frequencies from Admiral Cho, whose voice carried deadly calm. "You have entered human protected space without permission." Cho announced, "Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. You have 30 seconds to begin retreat." The technological superiority was obvious. Human ships moved with precision that Council vessels could not match. Their weapon systems locked onto targets faster, their shields charged quicker, and their formation flying demonstrated training that surpassed anything the Council military had achieved. Admiral Voss tried to maintain dignity while ordering retreat, but every species in the galaxy watched the Council fleet turn and run. The footage played on news networks everywhere showing human military superiority and Council weakness. The third attempt came. Through political pressure, Council Speaker Zeth traveled personally to minor species homeworlds trying to convince them not to follow the human example. He visited the Calthian mining world of Zerion 7, where human engineers had repaired their water systems. Elder Kix of the Calthian Council listened politely as Speaker Zeth explained the dangers of abandoning Council membership. "The galactic community requires order and structure," he said. "Your people need the stability that only the Council can provide." Elder Kix responded with quiet dignity. "The Council promised to help our water crisis 8 months ago. He said human engineers fixed our problems in 2 days. Which system provides more stability? The one that promises help eventually, or the one that delivers help immediately?" Similar conversations happened across the galaxy, as minor species compared Council promises with human results. The Meridian Alliance published a statement supporting humanity's right to self-determination that was signed by 67 species. They were tired of being ignored by the major powers who dominated Council politics. The most damaging rebellion came from within the Council itself. Junior delegates began openly criticizing their own leadership. During session meetings, Delegate Nam of the Corvani Federation stood up during a trade discussion and spoke words that echoed through the chamber. "We sit here debating shipping regulations while humans are rebuilding entire colonies," she said. "Why? Do we study problems for months when humans solve them in days? Perhaps the humans were right to leave. Perhaps we should consider following their example." Similar voices emerged from other minor species delegations. The chamber that once echoed with unified support for Council policies now rang with questions, criticism, and doubt. Speaker Zeth tried to maintain order, but authority once lost is difficult to recover. The final humiliation came when Council members began secretly requesting human aid. The Thrakari Defense Ministry sent coded messages asking for human military advisors to train their forces. The Nexari Health Service requested human medical supplies that were more effective than Council-approved treatments. President Kim made these requests public during a galaxy-wide broadcast. "The same Council that declared us dangerous rebels is now begging for our help," he announced with obvious amusement. "We will consider each request on its individual merits, but we will not pretend the Council sanctions have any meaning." Intelligence reports reaching Earth showed the true extent of Council collapse. 30% of member species had reduced their participation. Another 20% were maintaining secret trade relationships with humans. Several major powers were considering formal recognition of human independence. Director Yoon of Human Intelligence briefed President Kim on the situation. "The Council is fracturing from within," he reported. "Their attempt to punish us has backfired completely. More species are questioning Council authority every day. Some are asking how they can join our free trade alliance instead." The transformation amazed political analysts across the galaxy. The Council attempts to control humanity had only demonstrated their own weakness. Economic sanctions had hurt the Council more than humans. Military intimidation had revealed human superiority. Political pressure had accelerated the exodus of minor species. Within 6 months of the human withdrawal, the Galactic Council had lost nearly half its membership and most of its effectiveness. The remaining major powers still attended meetings, but their debates felt hollow when so many empty chairs surrounded them. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about power and authority. Systems built on bureaucracy and control cannot compete with systems built on results and cooperation. Humanity had not destroyed the old order, they had simply offered a better alternative, and the galaxy was choosing accordingly. 1 year after humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council, the galaxy had transformed completely. Ambassador Jin stood in the main conference hall of Freedom Station, a massive space structure built jointly by humans and 68 other species who had rejected Council membership. The station orbited at the edge of neutral space, serving as headquarters for the Free Trade Alliance that had emerged from the ruins of Council authority. Unlike the grand marble chambers of the old Council, this meeting hall felt warm and practical, with simple furniture, comfortable lighting, and translation systems that actually worked. Today marked the first anniversary of Operation Homecoming, and delegates from across the galaxy had gathered to celebrate what everyone now called Liberation Day. The contrast with council meetings was striking. Instead of boring speeches about regulations, these delegates talked about real achievements. Elder Kix of the Calthian Federation stood at the podium addressing the crowd. 1 year ago, our water systems failed and the Council promised help in 6 months, he said. Human engineers arrived in 2 days, and our people have had clean water ever since. This is what real government looks like. The applause was genuine and enthusiastic, unlike the polite clapping that had characterized council sessions. Delegate after delegate shared similar stories of human aid arriving when needed, human protection, stopping threats, and human efficiency, solving problems that had festered for years under council bureaucracy. President Kim watched from the Earth delegation section, feeling proud of what humanity had accomplished, but also amazed at how much had changed. The Free Trade Alliance now included over 90 species, representing 40% of galactic population and 60% of galactic commerce. The transformation became most visible during the Rigel crisis, when solar flares threatened 5 colony worlds with populations totaling 8 million beings. The old council would have formed study committees and planned responses for next quarter. The Free Trade Alliance acted within hours. Admiral Cho commanded the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species worked together, under human coordination, evacuating 2 million people in just 4 days. Thrakari transport vessels carried Vorthan families, while Nexari medical ships treated injured Calthians. The efficiency amazed everyone, including the evacuees themselves. Refugee camps became temporary cities with human logistics providing food, shelter, and medical care, while alien volunteers offered comfort and assistance in dozens of languages. Children who had been terrified of solar radiation played games with alien friends they had just met. Captain Seo supervised the evacuation of New Rigel colony, loading families onto transport ships as fast as the vessels could dock. No paperwork, no permits, no bureaucratic delays, just urgent action to save lives. The grateful colonists included many species who had never trusted each other before. But the most significant change came in military cooperation. The Valdorian Empire, once humanity's greatest enemy, requested a formal meeting with President Kim Emperor. Tech arrived at Earth personally, something that would have been impossible under council protocols. The meeting took place in Seoul with no ceremony or protocol. The Valdorian Emperor, a proud warrior who had fought humans in 3 border conflicts, sat across from President Kim in a simple conference room, drinking coffee and discussing mutual defense. Your species shows strength we respect and honor we value, Emperor Tech said in his deep voice. The way humans protect the weak and fight for justice matches our own warrior code. We request formal alliance between our peoples. The alliance shocked galactic observers. Valdorians had been council members for 2 centuries, but they abandoned that membership to join the human-led coalition. Their powerful fleet added significant military strength to the Free Trade Alliance. Similar alliances followed as species chose sides in the new galactic order. The Arcturus Defense Pact included 27 military powers who preferred human leadership to council bureaucracy. The Meridian Trade Network connected 40 industrial worlds through human-managed shipping routes. The old Galactic Council still existed, but its authority had crumbled. Speaker Zeth floated in chambers that were now mostly empty, addressing the few dozen species that remained loyal to the traditional system. His speeches about order and procedure sounded hollow when so much of the galaxy had moved on. The final humiliation for the Council came during the Andromedan Border War, when mysterious ships from another galaxy began probing Council space. The unknown vessels easily defeated traditional Council fleets using technology and tactics that seemed impossible. Council Defense Minister Rax watched helplessly as his most advanced battleships were destroyed by enemies who moved faster, shot more accurately, and coordinated better than any known military force. The invasion fleet approached the Council homeworld with nothing standing in their way. The desperate call for help went out to every military power in the galaxy, including the human-led Free Trade Alliance. President Kim received the transmission personally from Council Speaker Zeth, whose pride had finally broken completely. "We request immediate military assistance against unknown hostile forces," Zeth transmitted. His voice carried none of its former arrogance, only desperate fear. "The Council offers full recognition of human independence and Free Trade Alliance legitimacy." In exchange for aid, Admiral Cho smiled as he read the message. The same Council that had tried to blockade human space now begged for human protection. But Kim's decision was immediate and clear. "We will defend the galaxy," he announced. "Not as Council members, but as galactic citizens protecting our shared space." The human response was swift and overwhelming. 500 ships from the Free Trade Alliance arrived at the Council homeworld within 18 hours. Human tactical innovations and rapid response capabilities proved more than equal to the Andromedan threat captain. Yoon commanded the destroyer Inchin in the battle that saved the Council homeworld. His ship used new human-developed weapon systems that could match Andromedan technology. Human fleet coordination allowed smaller forces to defeat larger enemy formations. The battle lasted 6 hours, with human-led forces achieving complete victory. The mysterious invaders retreated back toward their own galaxy after losing half their fleet. The Council homeworld was saved, and every species in the galaxy knew who had done the saving. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Council Speaker Zeth traveled to Earth personally to negotiate the new galactic order. The meeting was brief, and to the point. President Kim welcomed the Council as junior partners in galactic defense, but made clear who now held real authority. The transformation was complete. The galaxy now operated on human principles of quick action, practical solutions, and protection of the vulnerable. While the old Council still debated protocols, the Free Trade Alliance solved problems. While Council fleets followed bureaucratic chains of command, human-led coalitions responded to threats immediately. Trade flowed through human-managed networks that prioritized efficiency over regulation. Defense alliances formed around human concepts of mutual protection rather than political dominance. Aid organizations followed human models of immediate response to emergencies. Perhaps most importantly, the new galactic order reflected human values about equality and cooperation. Species were judged by their contributions, not their size or age. Minor races had equal voices with major powers. Decisions were made based on results, rather than politics. Ambassador Jin addressed the Freedom Station Assembly as Liberation Day. Celebrations continued around them. 1 year ago, humanity walked away from a broken system. He said, "Today, we have built something better together." The galaxy learned that sometimes the most diplomatic action is refusing to participate in failed diplomacy. The crowd erupted in cheers from dozens of species who had found hope and purpose in the human example. Children played in the station corridors, mixing human games with alien traditions while their parents planned trade deals and defense agreements. The galaxy had learned that strength comes not from control, but from cooperation, not from bureaucracy, but from action, and not from ancient traditions, but from willingness to build something better. Humanity had shown the way, and the galaxy had followed, creating a more responsive, effective, and caring interstellar community. As the celebrations continued late into the station night, President Kim received a message from his daughter Park, who was still teaching on New Busan. The children are drawing pictures of the Liberation Day ceremony. She reported both human and alien kids are excited about the future. They will share. That message captured everything Kim thought. The future belonged not to old powers clinging to failed systems, but to those brave enough to build something new. And humanity had led that transformation not through conquest, but through the simple revolutionary act of caring more about results than rules.